WCPW and Buddies. This is Ultimate 23 Dragon, and after a long time of everything, all the crazy things going on during the off-season, and the stuff here, and all the new changes that's about to happen, for real this time, I figure that now, on a time where I have a half day at my job due to snow, I finally get the opportunity to do the recording and answering everyone's questions for this edition of Dragonite's Mailbag. There's a good boatload of questions, so let's see what we got. What do I think is the biggest upset in NASCAR history? Well, to me, there's a bunch of circumstances that will have to happen in order for that, in order to consider what would be the actual biggest upset. Could it be a small team winning at a non-restricted plate track? Because if that's your instance, then it would most certainly be Donnie Leah's truck win in 2008 at Mansfield. Probably the biggest upset in terms of big races. There's two I can think of off the bat. There's Paul Menard's 2011 Brickyard 400 win. But I think, in terms of the question, in terms of the overall aspect of it, I think the biggest upset all time has to be Derek Cope's win in the 1990 Daytona 500. Because Derek's team did not have teammates, which is the reason you can't really consider Trevor Bayne in 2011 with the Daytona 500, because he did have a somewhat teammate with Carl Edwards helping him. In Cope's instance, he mainly won because of an Earnhardt tire failure, or no one was going to go around that Black 3 that day. But considering that Cope only has 2 wins in his entire career, and for better or worse, is either famous or infamous for other things, it's definitely pretty interesting in terms of what could be considered as the biggest upset, but I think most people, including myself, would still go with the 1990 Daytona 500 win by Derek Cope. What are my thoughts on the stage racing? Initially, I was actually intrigued by it. For more reasons that's complicated than you can imagine. Because the main reason I was intrigued by it is because I want to see how this worked out. Because of a video I did last year, where I called out NASCAR for basically taking an idea from someone else. All it is a modified version of something Marty Reed suggested 10 years prior. And ironically, the one who suggested it the most was also the one who 10 years prior called it absurd. So what changed this time around to make Jeff Burton think this was a great idea? And I still don't know the answer to that. But anyway, the stage racing, it was better than I thought it was going to be. Because I thought it'd be a bunch of mayhem, too many incidents, it would cause too much chaos in their little playoff thing. But it actually did not turn out that bad. Now, there are some modifications I would make to that. Like, don't... Basically, the major thing I would want done is that in between the end of the stage and the beginning of the next stage is when you do all the pit work and stay out and all that stuff. Don't include right at the beginning of the stage as that caution period when the end of the stage happens. Or, there's an alternate way they can do that. If they're going to do continuous lap counting still, then just don't end the stage. Just make it a checkpoint or something. Otherwise, what they're going to have to do is something similar to when the Truck Series first came in, they did these halfway point breaks. And that might be something for NASCAR to consider. But other than that, it turned out way better than I thought it was going to be. Now, how are they going to screw it up in 2018 to make everyone think otherwise? Since the Cruiserweight Classic has come and passed on the WWE Network, do you consider wrestlers such as Jack Gallagher, Brian Kendrick, and Neville as mega baddies? No, because realistically, there's only 2 mega baddies in wrestling. Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton. That's it. You have to be a major douche in and or out of the ring in order to be considered a mega baddie in wrestling. There's no Cruiserweight mega baddies, so there's no problem in terms of that. So, it's kind of funny, because somebody else referenced me assuming that Jack Gallagher was going to be a mega baddie. But, no. He's weird, but he's not a mega baddie. What year do I think Jimmie Johnson will win his 8th championship? There's actually a pretty interesting pattern I see when it came to that. So, I'm going to make it blunt obvious here. When/if Jimmie wins an 8th championship, it will be in the year 2019. Basically, the reason is because of something we used to call the Scott Dixon syndrome. One of the interesting things about Scott Dixon is that there used to be a pattern where he would win a championship every 5 years. Because he won the championship in 2003, then he won it 5 years later in 2008, and then he won it 5 years later in 2013. So, that was an interesting aspect about how that went. And Jimmie Johnson has a similar thing going on in terms of every 3 years. Now, he was in championship contention his 3rd year in the Cup Series, which was 2004, and he didn't win it, either chase-wise or legitimate-wise, because legitimate-wise it would have been Jeff Gordon, chase-wise it was Kurt Busch. But 3 years after that, 2007, he won the championship. Yeah, 2006 was his first, but let's stick with the every 3 year syndrome here. 2007, he won the championship. 2010, he won the championship. 2013, he won the championship. 2016, he won the championship. And that's why I believe that when/if Jimmie gets an 8th championship, it will be in the year 2019. What is my opinion on closed cockpits? I think some people get confused when I talk about them, because I always reference them as the Cockpit Shields, but I guess the more legitified term would be closed cockpits. And I've referenced this in multiple videos in the past, and I always believe that closed cockpits would be the biggest step IndyCar can take to prevent any massive issues going on with potential head injuries. Because there have been too many times in the past where a non-closed cockpit is what actually ends up injuring a driver. And yeah, those are never good. With the closed cockpit, to me, you prevent things getting to the driver. It won't prevent all injuries, like in Sebastian Bourdais' case. If the Cockpit Shield existed last year, it would not have prevented the injured pelvis injury. But I also do believe that if the Cockpit Shield would have been a part of the safety improvements to the DW12 chassis, if they had implemented that time after what happened with Dan Weldon, I believe that Justin Wilson would still be alive. So there is that aspect of it. So I am pro closed cockpit / Cockpit Shield. So there's that. Now this is how old the last Dragonite's mailbag was, and that explains how busy I have been during the off-season, mainly at work and with other things I wanted to do. Because the next question, Who should win the Indy 500 this year? Will Marco break the curse? Will Montoya win in his only start this year, which was 2017? We're now in 2018. Will Dixon or Kanaan get their second? Will Helio get his fourth? Well, Helio came close, so there was that. Dixon, let's not discuss that. I should have mentioned that in my last question, but still. Kanaan getting a second, not likely with Ganassi, because guinea pig syndrome. And I'll have to explain that later. And no, Dad, I do not mean the movie G-Force I made you watch last night. Funny story behind that for another time. But anyway, I definitely would not have said Takuma Sato for 2017 if I answered it last year. For this year, it's anyone's race at this point. You never know what's going to happen at Indy. And I do believe that Helio, who's going to do sports car racing, will try for the Indy 500. I'm honestly not sure who's going to win it this time around. Personally, I have the belief that if Bourdais had not gotten hurt in that crash, he might have been a contender. Because, if I'm right, his replacement, I think, was Ed Jones. Look what he did. He finished third, I believe. So, my heart wants to say Bourdais in this one, but we're going to have to wait until mainly the season gets there, and then I can get a better sense about who could potentially get the win. So, it will be interesting to see what happens in this point, but I almost going to go with my main guys, and among the people, not among my main guys, Dixon sounds likely. So, there's that. Have I ever played the phone app Pokemon Go? No, this is my phone. You cannot play Pokemon Go on this. I only know of 3 people who has played it. My boyfriend's played it. Tyranitar Tube has played it. And Pip Knight's played it. I also am aware about Dashi Games playing it for maybe, 1 or 2 episodes, but that's about it. I mainly follow him for Super Mario Maker anyway, but yeah. In terms of me playing it, no. I'll just stick to the 3DS games. Thank you. What do I think about Matt Hagan and Leah Prichett? Leah Prichett, formerly known as Leah Pruitt, which caused some confusion among my friends. No, she's not related to Scott Pruitt. But anyway, she's doing pretty good in terms of Top Fuel. She's definitely one to keep an eye on for the future. She's not one of my drivers, but she's not a baddie either. Matt Hagan, on the other hand, I am iffy on. Yes, he's from my home state of Virginia. He's from Christiansburg, actually. Interesting. But for some reason, I feel like he just can't get it done against the John Force racers, which is confusing. Yeah, he's gotten the better of them a few times, including one championship run. But after that time where he just couldn't beat John Force for the championship some time ago, I want to say 2010 for some reason, but something along that line. For some reason, I just don't have a trust feeling for Hagan. But I could definitely rely on him more than the Force people, but I can rely on everyone else more than Hagan, so that's essentially how I feel about them. Prichett I'm good with, Hagan not so much. Will Helio Castroneves win a title when it's all said and done? Now, if I'd done this video last year, my answer would still be the same. I don't believe so. I do believe that Helio, if he would have stayed in IndyCar, would have been in contention, but I feel like that his teammates are just a bit stronger at this point, especially with the addition of Joseph Newgarden, who had won the championship. And Simon Pagenaud is just as strong as proven with last year. So there is that aspect. Now, that being said, do I think he can win a championship in sports cars? Apparently, he's done pretty well so far in his test events that he did last season. So, who knows? Maybe he'll get his championship there. Did I see Dale Earnhardt Jr. having a frustrating 2017? Yes, and not for the reason you're thinking. The question references Dale Jr.'s concussions, but I knew he was going to have a frustrating 2017 season, mainly because now with Jeff Gordon retired, the team really only cared about Jimmie Johnson. Yeah, Casey Kane got a miracle win, but you see how that turned out. It will be interesting to see what happens with their replacements. It will be interesting to see what they do with William Byron. It looks like he's one of those guys that can get away with a lot, and that's kind of frustrating. Especially with how last season ended with the Xfinity Championship basically being handed to him thanks to Ryan Preece. But still, I knew Dale Jr. was not going to have a good season because it just feels like that Hendrick, he has some drivers be successful and then all their popular drivers forget it. Now, granted, they're not doing that with Chase Elliott yet, but if William Byron is their future once Jimmie Johnson does leave racing, who knows where that could go. I guess we're just going to have to find out. But, yeah, I did see Dale Jr. having a frustrating 2017. And it was frustrating for a lot of people, believe me. What do I think of Formula E going to New York during the 2016-17 season? Once again, this is how old the questions are. Also, did I plan there on going and watching? No. At this point, I'm living in Virginia, so that would not have worked out. The farthest northeast I've been is Maryland. So, yeah, basically I go... I've been to the Midwest area, just not the Northeast area, so there's that. Formula E, it's gaining traction. I wish they did something they did last week, where they had everything live. That they had qualifying on Fox Sports 2, and then the race on Fox Sports 1 live, and that was pretty cool. I did like that. Maybe Formula E can get more attention if they go that way, because it's a pretty interesting motorsport. It really is. But I think Formula E, it's going to be like a baby variant of Formula 1, but going to places that Formula 1 either has never been or hasn't been in a long time, that's definitely going to bring some momentum for them. So if they keep doing things like they're doing, like going to New York and going to all these other interesting locations, they might become a motorsport of the future. So that will be interesting to see how that goes. How do I feel about Carla Edwards' retirement before the start of last season? I did a video on that. And part of me still thinks it's just him taking a break. It's not a retirement. It's just, what's the term when someone takes a break for a little while and then comes back? Like a hiatus or something. That's essentially what I think this is. Now, he might not come back to cut full time, but if he does return, it's going to be on a part-time basis or here and there and all that stuff. But essentially how did I feel about it? I was so giddy. All these Mega Baddies retiring. If Busch and Harvick retire within the next 2 seasons, then we have no more Mega Baddies. And I'd be really happy. What is my favorite Botchamania ending? That's not mine. Alright, so Botchamania is a series of wrestling bloopers done by a British fan by the name of Matthew. So, And I don't remember when they started. I think it was like in the mid-150s-ish when the ending started. But it's basically hilarious variants that involve wrestling in some way, shape, or form. And to me, the Botchamania endings are probably just as good as the actual episodes themselves. I don't have a per se favorite because there's so many that I do like, but I have a list of them that I do like. There's one from Botchamania 255, the Real Men of Genius thing that Miller Lite did years ago. They did one with Fandango. 283, there's Lesnar versus Rollins, Pokemon Red and Blue edition. Let's see, Botchamania 300, Hollywood Survivor Series, that was a funny one. 314, for the love of God, Bradshaw, shut up. I don't know what show that comes from, but you have to see it to do that. Also from 314 was Sheamus used Flash. Weird joke. From 318, the video I have is called Well Then, but I can tell by the angle, it's based on a sports blooper, so you can figure that one out. Let's see. 339. All the game show endings I've made, and this one made it. That's my title for it, but it's a Price is Right later one from Botchamania 339. 346, there was also Global Fusion Impact Wrestling. That Dragon Ball Z thing. Let's see. Also from 346 was Just Joe. That's self-explanatory. Let's see. 352 was something involving The Simpsons. Let's see. From 355, there's Excited Johnny Finds Alberto. So, there's that. Also, this is what I should have done. From 355, Harper, Rowan, Meowth. That'll be self-explanatory. And also from 355, there's 3 Alarm Wrestling. One of my boyfriend's favorite shows is Home Improvement, so that's an easy reference. Let's see. There's also ones that I forgot to label which Botchamania they're from. Let's see. Finally, a reason to actually like Brock Lesnar. It's a Rocky reference one. Let's see. I wish WWE had the power to go back in time. DirecTV video reference. There was that one. Let's see. The only other one was one involving Twitter, but it wasn't an official one. It was done from a backup variant where the original version by Matthew, the ending was blocked. So someone had taken that from, I think, Daily Motion and uploaded to YouTube with an alternate ending. I think it was episode 204 this happened with. But anyway, it's a weird Twitter one, so there was that. And I think that's the only Botchamania ones I have on label in terms of all that. I think that, yeah, I think that's it. No, that's a cornet scene. But anyway, that's all the Botchamania endings I have that I like. Now, do I have a per se favorite among them? No, there's just too many to count. But that's basically an example of the ones that I have on file that I like. So there's that. Should IndyCars return to Michigan and Chicagoland? Yes. I don't know why they were taken off the schedule to begin with. Well, Michigan I kind of have an idea, Dario. But Chicagoland, gee, have one incident all of a sudden, let's get rid of it. Even though that was years later they took it off the schedule. But I really like the racing they had at Michigan and Chicagoland. They had some pretty good races back in the day. I don't know why they're not on the schedule now. Because I hate it that the people of IndyCar is trying to make this into some sort of mini Formula 1-esque variant, and that's not a good thing. It's unfortunately going to get to the point where you're going to have every single road course race known to man and then the Indy 500, and that's it. And no, that's not right. They should have a mixture of road courses and oval tracks. It shouldn't be, one-sided in this direction or one-sided in that direction. They should definitely bring back tracks like Michigan and Chicagoland and Richmond. Hint, hint. What do I think about Kenny Bernstein? Well, Kenny Bernstein, he's a well-known legend in terms of the NHRA. First one to break the 300-mile-an-hour barrier. has won multiple championships. He's also the one that's involved in the infamous John Force crash of 2007 at Texas, and that was literally the last thing that many people know about Kenny Bernstein, unfortunately. But he's definitely one that was a very tough competitor. I used to root against him a lot, but that was only because Larry Dixon was one of my guys. And that was the Miller Lite Budweiser War, so that's kind of a rivalry in itself, so there's that. But other than that, he is a pretty decent guy. Very good racer. I rooted against him a lot, but he's not a baddie like many people try and make it out to be. He's just a rival, one of my guys, that's all. And he's definitely a legend. Why is Brad Keselowski in the NASCAR dozen? Ironically, the rest of the question was, is it to get leverage on Edwards, the NASCAR driver you despise the most? Yes and no. I don't get the term leverage of anything, but Carl Edwards is the reason I'm a Brad Keselowski fan. When NASCAR had the idea, and I don't know how many of you guys remember this, it was the have at it rule, where basically retaliation is a it thing. And then Carl Edwards tries to murder him. There are some places where retaliation is legitified, like Richmond or Martinsville or Bristol. Atlanta is not one of them. So when Carl decided to wreck Brad after, and this literally happened, nearly the beginning of the race, Brad's here, Carl is here, on the outside, going into turn 1, Carl comes down on Brad, gets himself squirrely, and hits the wall. Carl then goes off the deep end. And it's so ridiculous because so many people were pissed off when all Edwards got was essentially a slap on the wrist. He didn't get a 3-race suspension like he probably should have. I would have made it 5 because it's Atlanta. But on top of the fact that you did this at Atlanta, and it wasn't even a legitimate payback because Carl was the one who caused it, when NASCAR essentially did that penalty, that's when I said, alright, that's enough. And that's how Brad Keselowski became one of my guys. And I do not regret it. Do I think that Brad Keselowski will ever win another Cup title? If so, what year? This one's difficult because I do believe that Brad Keselowski can win another championship. The only question is, can that legitimately happen? And the reason I say that is because ever since 2015, I feel like that Penske Racing is one of those teams that NASCAR is out to get. Because they tried to make Joey Logano look like the bad guy, and now with all this stuff going on, it turns out that he's actually the good guy, which, believe me, I would not have said 7 years ago. Because I too thought Logano was a baddie, but I was proven wrong. He was actually the good guy the entire time, and Denny Hamlin was the bad guy the entire time. I was fooled too. And Keselowski, let's just face it, the evils in NASCAR do not like Keselowski. He's the exact opposite of what they want the drivers to be. So, can Keselowski win another championship? Yes. I could definitely see him in winning a championship within the next 7 years at least. I can't pick a year because with NASCAR, who knows? Because there's no pattern that indicates anything. If Keselowski does win another championship, what year? I'd like it to be every year, because he's basically the only one I got left. Now with Casey Kane going to Levine Family Racing? But still. He's definitely a championship contender, but I just think that, like Elliott Sadler with the Xfinity Series, he's just one of those guys that everyone else is going to be out to get to make sure he doesn't win the championship. Which is interesting because Joe Gibbs Racing's drivers are like that too. For the exact opposite reason. Because they're bad guys. But still. But still, I do believe that Keselowski can win a championship. The problem is, will NASCAR make it legitified enough that they actually let him have a chance? And it's a good thing they had a good shot last year, even though they finished 4th among the 4 guys in the chase in 2017. But I do believe that he does have a decent shot. I just don't know what year, or if NASCAR will ever let him. Because part of me still feels like they're kind of bitter about 2012. Should the Xfinity and Truck Series return to tracks like Pikes Peak and Milwaukee and South Boston and IRP and Rockingham and North Wilkesboro? Well, let's see. To the best of my knowledge, Pikes Peak, I think, has been indefinitely closed for the longest time, so that doesn't sound likely. It is a pretty neat concept in terms of where that track is exactly at, so that would be cool if they ever did revive that track, but I do not see it as likely. Let's see, Milwaukee. It's definitely had some races over the past few years with IndyCar, so I could definitely see the Xfinity and Truck Series returning there, but that would be up to how it would work with the Milwaukee people. South Boston, that would be an interesting idea for the Truck Series. I don't think necessarily for Xfinity, considering their current position. With the Truck Series, I could see that, but that's going to be kind of hard to tell considering their current format. IRP, definitely. Xfinity should go back there. They have no business going to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, especially with what happened this year when a bunch of Cup Series guys decided to play golf instead of watch the race. No joke. Let's see. Rockingham. I would definitely love to see all the series come back to Rockingham. The grandstands are always packed for those races, like the commenter said. And I always thought that Rockingham was a pretty neat concept for a racetrack. If only had the right people promoting it, that would be working. The only one I cannot see is North Wilkesboro, because those guys have been shut down for the longest time. And supposedly they're still in business, but I have not seen any evidence of that, because everything looks like it's either cracked up or in weeds and stuff. So I don't see that as a likely option. But the other tracks, in some way, shape, or form, yeah, they should definitely go back to those places. Have I ever heard of WCPW? Unfortunately, I have. Okay, so WCPW stands for What Culture Pro Wrestling. The people of the What Culture website that does wrestling countdowns and all that stuff, and I've seen them before because I was actually subbed to them. Essentially, they started their own little... It's not only just the wrestling promo they did, they also have a magazine called Wrestling. No joke. But anyway, they have done interesting countdowns. The ones that I have off the bat are 10 Crazy Facts You Just Have to Accept to Enjoy Wrestling, Thank You for Raging Me Out with Number 1, 10 Emotional Moments That Made Fans Cry, and of course one from my boyfriend, 10 Things WWE Wants You to Forget About Edge. Edge is his favorite wrestler. But yeah, it's essentially stuff like that, so... But yeah... I have heard of WCPW. I haven't watched it because I usually don't have time to. And it's interesting because it says basically they're not troll fans in my opinion, says the commenter. Well, most of them I don't see as troll fans, but to me there is one that is. And I don't know if he's still with them because apparently there's some sort of controversy associated with him. But it's a guy by the name of Adam Blampede. Or Blampide, or whatever his name is. You don't know with all these pronunciations these days. But anyway, he He's the one that did the Edge video, if you want to go take a look at that really quick. But, he's definitely a troll. Ugh. Everyone else, they're mainly okay, with a few here and there things, but the other guy, no. Just, no. Ugh. The countdown thing was essentially something that me and my boyfriend did when we were separated by distance. But that was something we did for a long time. I'll talk about the countdowns that they did, and a lot of times we disagreed on them. Me and them, but yeah. If NBC gets coverage of IndyCar after 2018, will Allen Bestwick come back to NBC, and will they move Rick Allen to IndyCar? This is interesting because one of the videos that I posted one of the last videos I posted last year was a mini movie I made where essentially during the Long Beach race, Rick Allen had talked about how Jimmie Johnson won the Texas race, and if you don't want to hear this, then mute the TV, because I'm going to tell you. And then at the end of the movie, I did a little butts in the seat thing that Tony Schiavone did, when he did the same thing with Mick Foley, which backfired on him in WCW. And the reason I posted that video was because, A, I didn't have anything set up for that month, because all the busy things going on with my current job with Black Friday, and then the Christmas season going to start, and that's why I mainly posted mini-movies and the awards thing I had already planned to do and have the footage for. But anyway, one of the most interesting talking points towards the end of the year is when Allen Bestwick was released by ESPN after their last IndyCar race of the season, which was the second Detroit race. And they were trying to figure out what was going to happen with Allen Bestwick, because he still wanted to do commentating, and a lot of people preferred that he do auto racing. Now, as far as I've heard, he's done a few football things here and there for other networks that no one's heard of, but I bet they heard of him now. But a lot of people have been trying to get Allen Bestwick to come back to NBC and to get rid of Rick Allen from the NASCAR booth and put Allen Bestwick with that lineup. That's interesting because there's actually a few options I could see. I have no doubt that Bestwick will come back to NBC. The only question is, what capacity? And there's actually a few options, and I referenced this on one of the videos. I just don't remember which one from another person. But anyway, there's 3 things I could see happening. Either the one that everyone wants, which is Bestwick replaces Rick Allen. Rick Allen goes to either the Xfinity Series in that schedule, or IndyCar in that schedule, and then Dave Burns goes back to pit road. One of those options. Or they could have Rick Allen stay with NASCAR to not ruin the momentum of that trio in the booth, and have Allen just cover IndyCar. So Lee Diffie would be free to focus solely... Wait a minute, that's not true, because... Actually, that could be an issue, because this is actually something else that I have to bring up. Formula One is leaving NBC. They're actually going to ESPN. I don't know why, but... And part of me always felt like that Lee Diffie might be the guy to do the ESPN Formula One races. So if he leaves NBC, you could either get Bestwick or Rick Allen to become the lead IndyCar guy and go that route. Because who knows where they will go from there. Because a lot of the IndyCar people have a connection with Formula One, I believe, in terms of the NBC crew. So they will be having some new people. And this just popped in my head, what if ESPN hires Bestwick back to do Formula One? that would be weird, wouldn't it? Who would they get? Is Bob Varsha still with Fox in terms of the Rolex series? So many variables to think about, but I still have no doubt that Bestwick will be going to NBC. The only question is in what capacity. What are the top 5 auto racing organizations in the world? Essentially a mini countdown video. That's going to be kind of hard to think about because there are so many. And you definitely have to include at least 4 of them. So what would be the 5th? I don't know. But I do have an idea of what could happen. Because basically 5 to 1, this would be my current order. Number 5 to me would be the Stadium Super Truck series. Because it's basically an infant series that was created by Robbie Gordon. And I think they mainly do it under USAC-like rules. But the way they managed to blend the usual traditional racetracks with the dirt trucks that you see in the off-road racing series, in the Torque series. So, having that unique of a blend will definitely make that a motorsport of the future if they get the coverage that's needed. Because I don't think CBS Sports Network will be enough in terms of that. But they do have their own YouTube channel, and they like posting their events, like NASCAR and IndyCar started to. So that would be cool for them in that aspect. Number 4 is an obvious one, the FIA, which controls a lot of variants of motorsports, including, supposedly, the most popular one in the world, which is Formula 1. I say supposedly because I don't believe that. Let's see. And the FIA actually doesn't do just Formula 1. They have other series. They're actually in charge of Formula E, which is also an up-and-coming series. So it would be interesting to see how that could go for them. Because with all the rage-outs they've had over the years with Formula 1, Formula E may be something they need to get back on track in terms of that and their popularity standard. Number 3 is NASCAR. Because they've been down a lot of years, and one good championship season is not going to be enough in order to revive it, because then you still have other series that could have a little bit of an issue. Mainly what happened with the truck series at Texas, and then you have the finale for Xfinity, and then, yeah, you still have some issues to take care of, but at least, for once, you're finally on the right track. Now keep it that way. Number 2 to me would be the NHRA. Basically, they've been around for a long time, and they've managed to get a lot of things done right. They're not exactly there yet, and they have lost a bit of momentum with how Funny Car ended and Pro Stock Bike ended, and that was, But they have other variations of series, like their Sportsman series, and the Pro mods are gaining some steam, so that's a good thing. So it will be interesting to see if they can bounce back from a ish finale, despite the fact that Top Fuel had one of the more interesting duels ever. And number 1 to me is actually IndyCar. They basically have everything that they need, finally bouncing back from all of their disasters. I still think they need the Closed Cockpit, and to me that'd be the final piece of the puzzle. I am a bit worried about their new car for 2018, so I'll put this as a question mark for right now, but hopefully everything can go right for them in terms of 2018 from the safety standard, because they got everything else right. They don't have a controversial point system, they don't have the ranges that they used to have, and hopefully everything will go back to the way it's supposed to be. And hopefully they add one more safety feature I think me and a lot of other people think that they need to be the truest top motorsport. They're there now, but you have NASCAR and drag racing breathing down their neck. You have an up-and-coming series like the Stadium Super Trucks and Formula E. And you have the traditional route of Formula 1. So basically, IndyCar's going to have to stay on their toes to remain the top motorsport in the world. And that's how I feel about that. So, that's it for Dragonite's mailbag. I I hope to have another episode out, and hopefully it won't take as long as between this episode and the last one. So if you have a question for a future Dragonite's mailbag, just let me know in the comments sector. And hopefully, maybe, I'll get my boyfriend in the next episode because he has some questions he's yet to answer. So, anyway, thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone has a nice and cool 2018. And that's my final answer.